My name is Judith Rolls, and I am the Senior Associate Director for Alumni and Family Engagement here at Davidson College. And I am joined this evening by my colleague Carissa Clonch, who is our Digital Events Fellow. We are thrilled to have the opportunity to welcome each of you for this back to school class featuring Dr. Trenita Brookshire Childers, class of 05. In a moment, we will turn the program over to her for further introductions. Before we get started, I wanted to go over a few quick Zoom keeping items. First, all participants have been muted, and we ask that you remain muted throughout the event. If you are comfortable with it and have not already changed your Zoom name to your first and last name, we ask that you do so now. You can rename yourself by clicking the participants button at the bottom of your screen, hovering your mouse over your name, and then clicking the more or ellipsis 3 dots button. If you have a Davidson class year, feel free to add that as well. If you have questions for the presenter, please share using the chat function this evening. The presenter will not be monitoring the chat function during the call. Presenter will do her best to answer as many questions as possible from the chat in our Q&A session at the end of the call. If you have any technical or other issues, please also post them in the chat function, as our staff will be watching that during the call. We have enabled the auto transcription for this call, so if you would like to enable this on your end, you can click the Show Closed Caption or CC button on your screen and subtitles should appear. Please note that the captions are not always accurate, so we ask for your grace. And now for our program, I am excited to introduce you to Dr. Trenita Brookshire Childers. Trenita grew up in the Midwest in Chicago and Cincinnati. Then she came to North Carolina to attend Davidson College. She graduated with a BA in sociology in 2005, taught 5th grade and coached middle school cheerleading for a few years, then joined the Peace Corps to serve in the Dominican Republic with her husband, Daryl Childers, class of 04. They had a couple of kids, and then they went back to the Dominican Republic to do research for her book called In Someone Else's Country, Anti-Haitian Racism and Citizenship in the Dominican Republic. After having a third kid, Dr. Childers received a PhD in sociology from Duke University. She currently uses this lens as a life coach when supporting kids, parents, and grandparents with self-reflection, household management, and relationship building. Dr. Childers also loves baking, photography, and bird watching. And I am now honored to turn the program over to Dr. Trenita Brookshire Childers, who will get us started.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Judith. And thank you to the Office of Alumni and Family Engagement at Davidson for coordinating behind the scenes to create opportunities like this, where we can really build a classroom community outside of traditional spaces. I'm so grateful that we're thinking outside the box about what learning can look like. I have a little flair for the dramatic, which I've rediscovered through my 8-year-old. So I will be wearing my feather boa today. I'll be wearing my feather boa today because life doesn't have enough whimsy. Before I dive into sociological theory, I would like to take a moment for us to just settle in and arrive right here, right now, together. It's a Thursday evening, so you might be on kid duty or you might be having a nightcap to wind down your day. I have my cup of tea. All vibes are welcome. And if you need to multitask right now, this is being recorded, so you can come back to it at any time. We're just going to take 3 slow, collective breaths together. If you need to make any adjustments or you have any fidgets to get out, now's the time. Okay, what do you do with your hands? You can let them hang gently at your sides. You can place your hands in your lap if that feels right to you. Or you can place a hand on your heart and another on your belly if you want a more firm connection to your body. If you want to, you can close your eyes. If not, leave them open. Let's just settle in and breathe together. We're going to do 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. Ready? In for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And slowly breathe out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Got 2 more. In for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And slowly out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And slowly breathe out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What we can build together is so much greater than what we can build alone. Let's see what we can build together today. Next slide, please. I'm going to start out with a little bit of level setting. During our hour together today, I'll be posing some questions for you to think about. I do want to leave some time for the Q&A at the end, so you might not have time to finish reflecting on your answer. But I would encourage you to take what you need from today's class. If there's a question that you want to keep thinking about, make a note of it. If not, let it go. My hope is that today's conversation sparks something you've been curious about and gives you a little momentum to stay curious and keep exploring. So I have a few questions to get us started. If you're a person who likes to write when they think, go ahead and grab a pen and paper or open a Word doc. If you prefer to listen, just listen and reflect on these questions. So the first, what are your goals or intentions for joining this class on family wellness? The second, who will benefit when you prioritize your wellness? And the third, what does your home feel like? What does your home feel like? Next slide. All right, let me introduce myself. I had a lovely introduction at the start, but I do want to tell you about my professional lens. My name is Dr. Trenita. I'm an applied sociologist. So that means I'm interested in how research can shape what we do. I'm also mama to 3 boys, ages 14, 11, and 8, almost 9. He's got a birthday coming up in a couple weeks. He already sent me his list. I am a wife, a sister, a daughter, a friend, neighbor, and an auntie, among other identities that I hold. I'm also a Davidson Wildcat, class of 05. Are y'all here, 05? Are there the other 05 folks? We're going to do a little roll call. We're going to see who's here in the chat. So if you are an alumni, go ahead and type your class year in the chat. Tell us who you are and what's up, who's here. Roll call. Who we got? 05. I see Fia. Hey, Greg. Nice to see you. Mary Square in the house. DeMario. I see Vanessa. JP already shouted us out in the beginning. Hey, Chloe. Nice to see some folks who have graduated in more recent years here. Jennifer Coop. Oh, hey, Jen. Nice to see you here. Who else is here? Okay, so that's the alumni. Aaron's in the house. Hey, E. We've got some alumni here. It's so great to have you all here. Are there any students here? If we have any students on the call, go ahead and tell us if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. Any students on the call? Any freshmen, sophomores, juniors, or seniors? Go ahead and enter in the chat if you are here. We would love to see you and shout you out. If you are a faculty member, tell us what department you represent. If you are staff, tell us what office you support. It's really great to have some Davidson folks here that are really representing the broad community of support at Davidson, and we're just glad to have everybody here for this time. All right. Thanks for being here this evening. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be here. And for this, I am grateful. Now, I have way too much information to share with you today, so that means we're just gonna have to do this again sometime. But let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. I am so glad you counted yourself in for this conversation. I can tell it's gonna be a good one. Let me tell you how the flow is gonna go. I'll talk at you for a little while, and there'll be some opportunities for you to engage either in the chat or for volunteers to come off mute and read a definition or some slide content. So let's get into it. What is applied sociology? Applied sociology is about using what we know from studying society to address real-world problems. Instead of just understanding how society works, applied sociologists take that knowledge and try to implement solutions. Sociologists mainly consider how power matters and how context matters. Since we're talking about families today, I'll describe how power and context matter within families. Power in families affects almost everything about daily life. It affects who gets what in the family, That includes things like money, food, attention, personal space, and time for themselves. Power includes who makes the big decisions, like where to live, how to spend money, what kids can do, and even smaller day-to-day choices. Power also includes who does what work, including cooking, cleaning, childcare, yard work, and the invisible job of keeping everyone emotionally happy. Sociologists also think about how context matters in families. This includes things like considering cultural surroundings. Families adapt to the expectations of their communities. What's normal for raising a kid in one place might seem strange in another. Context also includes major events, things like economic recessions, wars, natural disasters, or pandemics can dramatically change family life overnight. Families don't exist in a bubble. They are constantly adapting to the world around them, and what works in one situation might not work in another. I remember the daunting feeling of bringing home a tiny infant and thinking about all the things I would need to help him learn: how to walk, talk, use the potty, cross the street, brush teeth regularly. And as they get older, we help them learn how to follow directions, spend and save money, how to manage their time, and how to be safe online. But when you apply a sociological perspective to the choices that you make for your family, it might also push you to think about the importance of some skills that get less attention, maybe less urgency in our parenting. But we also want to teach them about active listening, individual and collective decision-making strategies, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness and reflection. This might seem like a lot, but we don't have to do everything, everywhere, all at once. Let me share a perspective that can help. Next slide, please. Let's talk about life course theory. Can I have a volunteer who could read the definition of what is life course theory? Let's see. How can I see who wants to read the definition? I don't know how to call people. Oh, JP is ready.
I
Go
was going to
ahead.
say, I'll just jump in. Life course theory, a sociological theory that examines how people's lives are shaped by their experiences from birth to death. Key assumptions: constrained choice, timing matters, always growing and learning.
Thank you. So just to clarify, constrained choice means that when people make decisions, we don't all have the same set of choices in front of us. We see people's decisions, but we don't actually see their choices. On the right side of this slide, we've got 5 principles of life course theory. The first is social and historical context, which I've discussed a little bit, but when thinking about families and historical context, families today deal with different issues than families did 50 years ago. Things like technology, housing costs, and changing ideas about marriage all create new family patterns. Another principle is life events. This includes things like divorce, serious illness, job loss, or death. Transitions also have an impact on the life course. Transitions are changes in social role, including things like graduation or marriage or becoming a parent or becoming a grandparent. Trajectories, where am I? I'm on the 4th one, trajectories. Trajectories are long-term patterns that are affected by transition. That probably means nothing to you, so let me give you a few examples. One trajectory is where you live. There's a pattern, you might have a pattern of moving between neighborhoods or cities or countries throughout your life. Another trajectory might be related to work, the path of your work life. Over the life course, you might have job changes, promotions, periods of unemployment, career shifts, and eventual retirement. Family formation is another trajectory. Relationship milestones like dating, cohabitation, marriage, divorce, remarriage, having children or not, all of these transitions are part of the family trajectory. And the last principle of life course theory is that people's lives are intertwined through social relationships. Next slide, please. So, over the life course, how do people learn communication skills? Social norms, expectations, empathy, and conflict resolution. The answer is they learn these things through socialization. Do I have another volunteer who would like to read the definition of socialization? Anybody? Any brave souls?
This is Mary. I can do it.
Hey, Mary, go for it.
Socialization is the process through which individuals learn and internalize the norms, values, behaviors, and social skills appropriate to their society.
Thank you. So over the life course, because it's a process. So one of the things to point out about socialization is that it's a process. And because it's a process, we can really see where and when changes or interventions might be most effective. Also, we don't have to judge ourselves or other people because people are in different places in their process. And the other thing about this is that we can take the long view when we're shaping our family relationships. Next slide, please. So let's define family. We've got another reading opportunity, folks. We have another reader who would like to try? Can a volunteer who would read the definition for family and chosen family? This person can take both.
I can do it.
Thanks, Via.
Family, a group of people united by blood, marriage, committed relationship, or adoption who form a social unit that typically provides for the economic, emotional, and physical needs of its members. Chosen family, non-biological kinship bonds deliberately chosen for the purpose of mutual support and love, can consist of friends, partners, and ex-partners, biological and non-biological children, and others who provide kinship support.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So this is what I mean when we're talking about family. And a household is people who share the same roof. And people in a household can include all kinds of folks. It could be step parents, parents in love, or in-laws. We really got to get some better language on like how to call people. But there are pet family members and couples and multifamily households and roommates. So let's move on to the next slide. Today, we're going to spend most of our time talking about the choices we make when shaping family dynamics. But it's important to take a step back and consider who or what is driving your choices. When fear drives your choices, those choices are impulsive and knee-jerk rather than intentional. So today, I want to create some space for acknowledging some of the fears we hold in our family relationships so that we can shift toward being more intentional. I'll start with the purple boxes in the middle. Not understanding, we might fear that because we don't understand a kid, we can't connect. Or maybe there are things your parents did when raising you that you want to hold on to, but you're not sure if you can. These are fears about navigating a changing world. And to manage this fear, we can try our best to be present and flexible. We might also fear that we're not connected enough, or maybe that we're too attached. This can come from our own childhood experiences where maybe we felt isolated in our homes, or maybe some of us felt suffocated. These fears are about repeating what didn't work for us. To manage this, we can try our best to connect without judgment. We might also fear that we're missing all the small moments and all the big moments as we try to make choices that affirm ourselves as individuals. These fears are about losing yourself in parenthood. And to manage this, we can try our best to work toward harmony. I know a lot of people talk about work-life balance, but that word doesn't really resonate with me. I feel like harmony in relationships has people, maybe it signals that people are more willing to work through disagreements with love and care for one another. Maybe harmony means that your different roles and parts of yourself are working together instead of pulling you in opposite directions. Okay, so we've looked at some of our fears, and now we're ready to move forward and make choices with intention to build our family wellness ecosystem. Let's look at the next slide. There are a lot of different parenting styles. You might have heard of authoritative parenting or helicopter parents or gentle parents. I don't really love labels, but if you do, this approach is most closely related to relational parenting. So if you're looking for something to Google, you could try relational parenting. So let's break this down, the family wellness ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community of living beings that interact with one another and their environment to keep it going. Usually, when we hear the word ecosystem, we think about plants, animals, maybe microorganisms, but families are also ecosystems. Families are made up of different people who interact with each other and their environment in different ways. Each family member plays an important role, and their interactions create a dynamic and supportive environment. So as we build our family ecosystems, here are 5 core areas to think about. We've got health and safety, identity, connection, belonging, and legacy. So in the next section, I'll walk through each of these 5 core areas. Let's start with health and safety. Next slide, please. Health and safety is really at the foundation, which supports all the other areas. And the things that influence our health and safety are complex. A biopsychosocial lens is a way of looking at human life that considers 3 big parts all working together. Bio is the biological. This is about your physical body, your genes, brain chemistry, hormones, and physical health. It's the nuts and bolts of how your body works. Psycho is the psychological. This covers your mind, your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, stress levels, and any coping skills that you use, and personal experiences as well. It's basically what goes on inside your head. The social piece involves your connections to others. That's your relationships, family dynamics, cultural background, economic situation, and community. It's how the world around you shapes who you are. The key idea is that these 3 areas constantly influence each other. Instead of looking at just one piece of the puzzle, a biopsychosocial approach gives you the whole picture of what affects well-being. So when we think about health and safety, we could use childhood asthma as an example. If a child has asthma, what kind of support might they need? The biological factors, that would be the purple chunk of the pie chart, might be things like monitoring medication management, monitoring how well their lungs are functioning, and looking for things in the home that might trigger an asthma attack. The psychological, in green, might include things like helping the child manage nerves or worry during attacks, or it could include helping them build the confidence to manage their symptoms. The social factors in red would include things like teaching school staff about emergency protocols, or maybe addressing financial barriers to healthcare. We can typically think pretty easily about physical health and safety. So I'll give you a little more information about emotional health and safety in this next slide. Emotional health and safety are also important for well-being because it helps us navigate life's challenges and build strong relationships. Emotional health is about being aware of our feelings, expressing them appropriately, and having healthy relationships with other people. It's also about feeling secure and supported in expressing your feelings without fear of judgment or rejection. So, how are routines related to emotional safety? I'm so glad you asked. A routine provides a predictable structure, which helps people feel secure and know what to expect each day. Knowing what comes next can reduce worry and stress, making kids feel more at ease. When people know their daily schedule, they feel more in control of their environment and more in control of their time. And also, routines can support independence as kids learn how to manage their own activities within a set structure. I'm not sure about your house, but I've found that transition periods are the most chaotic. So it might be helpful for you to notice where the transitions are in your day and then create a routine to get through that transition. These are just a few transition periods I noticed that, sometimes going from asleep to awake is just like, whew, I need to take a few breaths before I get out of the bed. So you can think about your day and what are those transition moments and figure out what kinds of routines might be helpful for you to include. Next slide, please. But even with all your routines and planning, life will keep on lifing. So I like to think of my time in terms of red activities and green activities. The red activities are challenges. They are like vacuums that suck up all your energy. Look at that little vacuum, looking all cute and mischievous, just waiting to suck up your energy. So life has challenges. Daily activities can drain you. Here are some of the possible things that could leave you feeling drained. Spreadsheets. Spreadsheets make me feel drained. Networking events, back-to-back meetings, monotonous or repetitive tasks. Maybe go ahead in the chat if you can think of one activity that makes you feel drained and exhausted. Go ahead and type that one activity in the chat. And something that is draining and exhausting for you might not be for somebody else. So this kind of thing like varies from person to person. So in the chat, please add one thing that makes you feel exhausted. Something that makes you feel tired. Planning meals. Whew. Yes, Jen, that's real. Spreadsheet. Oh, you don't mind the spreadsheet. Okay. Back-to-back meetings, grocery shopping. Yes, Christina. Meetings, a million emails for sure. Mischievous vacuum. Teehee. Oh, driving, the back and forth driving for sure. Newborn babies. Whew. I feel that, Allison. Meetings with no agenda. Ooh, Demario, that's real. Micah says math tests. Okay. All right. I'm into it. Good to see you, Micah. All right. So these are some things that make you feel drained. Thank you so much for participating in the chat. What the other thing is that there are activities that are green. So life, it's red things happening, but it also has green things that are happening. These are activities that fill you up and make you feel recharged. So daily activities that are green might include maybe a one-on-one coffee date, or reading a book, or taking a walk in nature, maybe listening to music. Some people like group fitness dances, group fitness classes, or concerts, or community service. So in the chat, go ahead and type one activity that feels green to you, something that feels like a mood booster and gives you energy for your next thing. Type something that feels like a mood booster. Walking, dancing. Max says playing with friends, walking a dog. Yes, in the woods. Okay, so she's walking a dog in the, Alfred, sorry. Walking the dog in the woods. That's 3 green things at once. Nice job. Watering plants, loud music in the car. We got lots of music fans out here. I'm with you all. Pilates, yes, JP. I don't do Pilates, but I do stick to yoga. Bird watching. I am so into bird watching. People underestimate the joy of bird watching. It is quiet. It sparks your curiosity, and it's free. Bird watching is so free. Anyway, we've got crafts, basketball. Yes, basketball daily is great. And art, lots of stuff in here. Hey, Ken, good to see you. Okay, so the other thing we got, okay, so we summed up our red activities and our green activities. So let's go to the next slide. When you categorize activities as red or green for yourself, you really can look at your day. Like you can look at your day or your week or even your year to kind of see and anticipate like where that red will be. That lets you know where you need to be intentional about really like squeezing in some green. If it's looking real red, then you have to really push to find some space for green. So the other thing I'll point out about this picture is that there are some places where there's a red and green line together on the same bar. That's meant to show that you could be doing a red activity and add something green to make it less awful. So let's take washing dishes. I don't like it. So I play music sometimes while I do it. So I have the red activity of dishwashing and I'm doing it while I'm listening to music, and that makes it a little bit more manageable. All right, let's go to the next slide. Let's close out health and safety with a little bit of reflection. As I mentioned at the start of our time together, you can always come back to these questions if you don't have time to finish your thought today. But go ahead and pick one of these reflection questions to think about. The first one asks you to rate your health and safety when you were a child. So what's the rating scale? You could do like a 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. It really doesn't matter. This is your paper. I won't even see it. So let's say 1 to 10. 10 is really fantastic, great health and safety, and then 1 is not so much. You can think about this in stages as well. So you can rate your health and safety when you were a child. You can rate it reflecting on when you were a young adult, and then thinking about where you are now. And that might help you think through what you need. The second question is make a list of activities that feel red for you, and then make a list of activities that feel green for you. That way you have your list. Like once you are trying to figure out ways to build in green, you can just go to your list. You don't even have to think about it. All right, next slide, please. This section, so we've talked a little bit about health and safety. Our next section is about identity. What is identity? Identity is how we see ourselves, and it's also how others see us. It includes characteristics like beliefs and personality traits, and it also includes social roles, group memberships, and cultural identities. Next slide, please. We know deeply and intently how we are designed. Now, whether we tune into it or not is another thing, but we know ourselves. Our minds and our bodies let us know when we are in places that are not in alignment with how we're designed. So a bit of reflection about how you're designed can help you notice your needs and make choices that align with who you are. When reflecting on who we are and what we need, we can think about our environment, which includes things like, do you like having plants and animals around you? Do you like a little clutter, or do you not mind a little clutter? Maybe I'll say I don't necessarily like clutter, but I can deal with a little clutter. How do you feel about background noise or together time versus alone time? How do you share your space, or what kind of personal space do you need? All those things are related to your environment. The other piece that's important on reflecting on who we are and what we need is how we learn best. People learn in all kinds of different ways. Some people are visual learners and they need to see things, or they need colors or images to help them learn. Some people learn through movement. Those are kinesthetic learners. Some people learn through listening and they can just absorb things. I'm not that way. If I'm just sitting there listening, who knows what I will remember? I have no idea. So I'm a very visual learner. I have to kind of be taking notes or writing or doing something while I listen. And then there are other people who learn through social and interpersonal interactions. The important thing is once you know how you learn, you can really teach yourself anything. We can also think about what motivates us. Are you someone who likes to get a good job or a gold star? There's nothing wrong with that. Give yourself a good job. Give yourself a gold star. Maybe you like to find a role model and kind of sit back and watch somebody else do it for a little while. Or maybe you're motivated through relationships and connections with other people. Knowing what motivates you and what motivates your kids can help as you shape your family dynamics. All right. Think about, I forgot to mention this. Think about what your energy is like. Now, when you think about your energy and then the people who live in your house with you and their energy, does it flow well? Do y'all butt heads? What is the energy like there? So, I mean, I didn't mention this, but I'm like a semi-introverted person who lives in a house with my husband, a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old. After a period of burnout and exhaustion, I noticed that I really, really need quiet time. And I had to find ways to carve that out for myself. And I gotta say, like, noise canceling headphones are my friends. That's how I find alone time. All right, next slide, please. So what kinds of things are we thinking about when it comes to identity? I wanna look at some of these questions. Might be thinking about your personality, what traits you inherit from your parents. You might have developed traits in response to trauma. Some of us have experienced real trauma in life that can actually take root and shift some of our personality traits. But when you look at that trait and think about who you are, maybe by trying to remember who you were as a kid, it makes you wonder, is this who I am, or did I develop this trait in response to trauma? When thinking about identity, you might also want to ask, which of your traits do you see in your kids? Which of those traits make you cringe a little bit? Can you find a way to love those traits or be patient with them? Or give people tools to just live with those traits if that's who they are? All right, next slide. We're going to close out identity with a little bit of reflection. You could list the identities that make you who you are, and you could share that list with somebody and ask for their perspective. I think sharing the list is like the really cool piece of it, because you can ask people like if they agree or would they add or change anything. And you might learn something about yourself. Next slide, please. So we've covered health and safety, and we've covered identity. Let's talk about connection. One-on-one connection refers to a direct personal interaction between two people. It could be deep and meaningful, like those long conversations we had in dorm rooms at Davidson, or it could be light, breezy chit chat, which is also important. Small talk can be the on-ramp for deep and meaningful conversations in the future. One-on-one connection helps people learn how to build trust and reciprocity. It helps provide a safe space for emotional expression and processing. And it also supports identity development as people get to know themselves over the life course. Next slide. The parent-child relationship changes over time. So families have to learn how to stay connected or set boundaries to remain in relationship over the long haul. So let's look at the stages of life. We've got the stages of life represented in the middle, sort of in the middle. We've got early childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, middle adulthood, and late adulthood. And then along the top and bottom, we see how the relationship between parents and children can change over time. In early childhood, parenting is really about nurturing, caregiving, teaching specific values. And then eventually you want to be encouraging independence, mentorship, and advice that are sort of shifting from like a very much a caregiver to a mentor in that young adult stage. And then towards late adulthood, there might be role reversal where children are then caring for their parents. One way to stay connected through the transitions is to be present. Next slide, please. Being present, just being with people in shared space. This is things like porch sitting, talking about the weather. Just being present builds empathy, communication, and trust. But it is really not easy to be present these days. There are a lot of things competing for our attention. We've got distractions, stress, anxiety, multitasking, and overwhelm. Y'all tell me in the chat, which one of these is your story? Are you the overwhelmed, the multitasker, the stress, anxiety, or the distraction? Which one makes it hard for you to be present? Go ahead and list it in the chat. Multitasker. Somebody said all of the above. That's really funny. Stress, anxiety, distractions. Yep, all of these things get in the way of being present. So we're not always going to get it right, and we can practice modeling apologies when we get it wrong. Let's look at the next slide. How to apologize. There are steps. You say, I'm really sorry and you say what it is. What I did was hurtful because, I won't do it again because, and I would like to try to make it better by. Each of these parts of an apology really just normalizes the process and gives people communication skills. And we just expect it. It's part of life that you will have to apologize, and here's a way to do it. Next slide, please. This poem is, I'll read it because one of the things about parenting is that sometimes just by way of being a parent, you just expect that your child should respect you, but it's really a two-way situation. So I'll read this. I do not expect my child's respect. Just because I've given birth to their life does not mean they owe me anything. What I want most is to look into my child's eyes and see that I have given birth to a heart, have honored, held, and fed someone's heart from the moment we first met, and they love me for it. Next slide, please. We're going to skip this reflection because I want to do Q&A, but it's here. You can think about your interests and how those interests connects with others. That's very lovely. Let's move forward. Okay, belonging. Belonging is the feeling of being accepted and valued by a group or community. It's about feeling like you fit in and are a part of something bigger than yourself. It's important because it helps people feel secure, supported, and understood. People can find a sense of belonging within a family, but you can also find belonging among friends, at school, at work, or in community. Let's go to the next slide, please. I really wish that people knew more about all the benefits of belonging. It's just not talked about enough. So you might recognize this pie chart from several slides ago where I was talking about health and safety through the biopsychosocial lens, which is our body, mind, and relationships. we can use this same lens to look at belonging. So we'll start with the body. The biological factors, you might, when you are belonging, when you experience a sense of belonging, your brain releases feel-good chemicals like oxytocin and endorphins, and it lowers the stress hormones like cortisol. It can support neuron development. It can support immune function, healthier hearts, better sleep. And there's also new research that suggests that feeling like you belong can even influence how your genes work. The psychological factors in green. Belonging helps people figure out how to handle their emotions, helps shape their identity. As you get reflection, when you're around people you belong with, it helps reflect on your own identity. Secure relationships build resilience, which is the inner strength to cope with challenges. And then also feeling like you belong encourages people to explore, take risks, pursue goals. In the red section, we've got our social factors. Belonging affects relationships across generations. So you can have children, parents, and grandparents and great-grandparents sort of contributing to this sense of belonging in a family. Different cultures have different ways of fostering belonging through traditions and values. And all of these things are really important. And so you can see basically when you look at ourselves, when you look at a person holistically, we pause and look at the full picture. Belonging is an instrumental part of development for kids, teens, adults at all stages of the life course. Next slide, please. So let's think a minute. What groups do you belong to? It's sometimes like you don't actually even realize like what all the different groups that you belong to. The second question is, how does belonging support you? Like what does being a part of that group give you? What does it do for you? When you take a minute to notice and name it, sometimes when you're with that group, you can actually soak it in and really get the benefits of belonging when you notice that it's there. And the third question is, how do you contribute to those groups? All right, next slide, please. Now we've made it to our final element that supports family wellness, which is legacy. Legacy is about our connection among past, present, and future. So at its core, legacy is about our relationship with time, which we really can't control. We can change what time feels like for us. Like a day could feel longer or shorter, but we can't add and subtract minutes and hours and days, even if we would want to. So the strategy really is to just settle into the rhythm of your life and adjust as needed. When I think about legacy, I think in poetry for some reason. So I want to share a couple of poems with you. Next slide, please. This poem was written by my oldest son. He is 14 now, but he was in 4th grade when he wrote this poem. So I guess he was about 9 years old. I'm going to read it. He writes, I am from fish fries and sleepovers, Harris Teeter and the free cookies, soccer balls and books. A loving family is where I'm from. I am from, if I got any better than this, I couldn't stand it. And soft serve from a hilarious granddad named Ferris saying, you are soft as pudding. I am from the smell of breakfast food on Sunday morning, cooking in mom's kitchen. From my granddaddy's Air Force stories to my dad's football skills at Davidson College. If you did my family research and dug deep into my genes, you'll find Ferris and Jesse, Tanya, Renee, and Chris, the greatest grandparents. Next slide, please. This is the dad. So the last poem was my son, and this poem is written by Daryl, my husband. I will read that one. I am from yellow shag carpet, from Fruitio's cereal and red Kool-Aid. I am from a modular home with 5 people in 1,000 square feet. Crowded, comfortable, always noisy. I am from kudzu and bamboo forests, dense and mysterious. I am from loud, long birthday songs and repeating the same stories all the time. From Miss Jessie and Big George, I'm from long, long goodbyes and always seeing somebody you know in Food Lion. From always look out for your brother and bought sense is better than borrowed. I'm from being in church every day, and I mean every single day. I'm from the Grove, where everybody knows your name. From Childerses and Robinsons all across this great state. From Grandmama's pound cake and Mama's breakfast pizza. From that time we let Daryl go to Europe and he lost all his stuff. From the grandmother who cooks all day on Sundays and holidays so she can feed anyone who comes to her door, friend or frenemy. Photos and keepsakes spread across the house, collecting dust on shelves, stuck to walls, hiding in drawers. I am from a place where I'm always surrounded by those that I love and those that love me. I shared these two poems with you all because sometimes it's easy to see when pain has been passed down from one generation to the next. We see it in our emotional triggers. We see pain in unhealthy behavior patterns or communication styles, but we very rarely get to see an example of how love is passed down from one generation to the next. And it begins with the way we love ourselves. Next slide, please. The way we talk to ourselves reflects where we are on our journey towards loving ourselves. A mantra is a word, phrase, or sound that you repeat to help focus on a personal goal or spiritual growth. It's usually used in meditation, but you could use it to repeat or think about any phrase that you can use these mantras if you're trying to unlearn any internal messages that are not helpful, even if you're not meditating. This slide offers several mantras for you to consider, so I am going to take a second for y'all to read through them because sometimes mantras find you. So go ahead and note whichever mantra is finding you. Okay, next slide, please. We can, this activity, choose a mantra to read and affirm yourself for the next week. You can do that. Share a mantra with somebody else and let them choose. Let's skip our way through these resources because I want to do Q&A. We can skip this one. That's the feelings wheel. If you like it, go, you can find it. The feelings wheel is lovely. There are some resources here. There are songs here. Meditation, breath work, poetry. Maybe go back one slide just so I can show people. Yep, the TV and music. There are categories here where there are TV and movies. There's documentaries and things like that. There are books to consider, podcasts, social media. I just wanted this slide to be up for a minute in case people are watching the recording. Okay, next slide. Keep going. Thank you. Okay, now welcome to the soft launch of my coaching business. I'm also a resource. Based on the theoretical lens that we just learned, I've developed some growth pathways to explore with clients in my coaching business, Dr. Trenita, Parent and Family Wellness. There are several categories that folks could consider. Any major transitions you might need support with, household management, language and culture. I've lived in the Dominican Republic twice, and I was also a 5th grade Spanish teacher for a hot minute, so I can support folks trying to raise kids that speak another language. I can also support with cooking and baking basics, either teaching kids or teaching adults who want some coaching in that area. So next slide, please. If you would like to stay connected, go ahead and you can scan the QR code. You can send me an email. This would be an opportunity for you to either sign up for coaching, join my mailing list, which I'm really looking forward to creating newsletters and other resources for folks, or check out my website and follow me on social media. That is the end of my presentation, and I am so, so glad that y'all spent this time with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Trinita. At this time, we are excited to have you all share your questions. You can put them in the chat. I do have one that was placed already. If you're okay, I can read that to you. Or actually, Janelle, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I was asking, you had mentioned earlier about behaviors that come from trauma. And my question was, how do you really distinguish whether a personality trait is stemming from trauma or it's just your personality evolving?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Janelle. In the end, I think it's for you to decide like how you want to be moving forward. I think that's one of the things I love about the idea of agency and socialization as a process. You can choose who you want to be. Are you okay with this trait? If you'd like to change it, then it makes sense to look at that trait and figure out where it came from. And so sometimes by the time you unpack the trait and you're like, I am, I don't know, I can't think of a good example of a trait. I'm closed off. Maybe I'm closed off to other people, right? I've been closed off to other people for so long and I'm trying to figure out what it is and why I'm so closed off. And then I keep unpacking to find that I wasn't always that way. And so I might try to figure out through journaling or therapy or conversations with friends and family, like, was I always this way? Maybe people who knew you before can talk through some of that identity development issues. But I think it's a really good question about whether it comes from trauma or not. And maybe in the end, the only thing that matters is, do you want to change it or not? Like, you're the one who is living your life. So great question. Others?
There is one in the chat, Dr. Trinita, that says from Alfred, if Alfred wants to unmute.
Yes. Hello. Alfred, you were one of the parents of graduates, right? You were an alum, a parent alum? I mean, a parent of an alum, is that right? Where are you at, Alfred?
I'm sorry, this is his wife.
Oh, hi.
I'm Geraldine.
Hello, Geraldine.
I'm sorry. I came in and I thought there was such an amazing talk that you were giving. So my question is, I'm always thinking about what was I like as a child. I can't really remember, and I feel like if I ask my mother, she's not really give me the answer maybe that I want to know, or
Mhm.
it could be the answer someone's giving you could be different.
Yeah.
And so is it just you just looking at what you remember? But I don't know. That's my question. I have that question a lot because I'm a teacher
Yeah.
and I teach young children, and sometimes I'm wondering how was that like when I was in, fourth grade or third grade or second grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really great question, Geraldine. One way to try to get back to that place, I mean, it's been a long time since some of us were kids, but one way to get back to that place is to think about how you play. Or maybe think about how what did you used to play like? And so maybe you played through crafting, or maybe you played in the mud, or maybe you played with animals, or maybe you played with building blocks. I don't know, but sometimes connecting to play can help us get back to what it felt like to be a child. We don't play very much as adults, or maybe play looks different, or we deprioritize it, but when you reconnect with the sense of like whimsy and play, sometimes it can jog memories that were buried. And you could be like, oh my gosh, I remember I used to do this thing over here at grandma's house. And so you're right. It is very difficult to remember how you once were, but you can do things like you can plug yourself into activities that can help trigger a memory. So I think that would be my answer.
Yeah, and I agree. Thank you.
Right, there's a question in the chat from Daryl. Daryl, do you want to unmute?
I'm happy to. This is not a planet question. It's really my question. Yeah, just wondering if you have any suggestions for helping, especially a teen, but even a younger child who's having trouble, who seems to be having trouble with belonging.
Yep. I think it's a great question. And I think that part of it is finding your people, which is a lifelong kind of question, is like, going from group to group. Do I fit here? Do I fit there? Maybe I fit a little bit in this group, but not so much in that group. Or I fit in these ways, but not these other ways. And so a teen, I think, first of all, giving some perspective about where they are in the life course could really help. And sort of being like, yes, you may be struggling to belong, but you won't be struggling to belong forever. Also, we all struggle to belong in different ways. Like, let's normalize that this is a real thing. So it can take some of the like guilt and blame and shame and all these other feelings when you don't belong, where like, is something wrong with you? It's not anything wrong with you. It's that you haven't found your people yet. You haven't found your place yet. So I think that one thing teens can do is to just keep trying different people in different places that make them feel safe, comfortable, and like they can be themselves, and they don't have to change who they are when they're in those spaces. Thank you for the question.
Dr. Childers, that sounded like a planning question. No, I'm just
It
kidding.
wasn't.
No,
It
I'm just
wasn't.
joking.
I'm
I'm just
just like
joking. I'm
that
just joking. No,
good. I'm off the
I wanted
cuff.
to interject, and so it was perfect timing for that question. So I appreciate DC for even asking. But as a dad of two boys, 13 and 6, I'm having difficulties in navigating like the transitions and expectations and spending time with both of them adequately. Can you provide any tips or insight on how to ensure that, I'm not necessarily, because the 6-year-old some days want to act like he's a 13-year-old, and some days the 13-year-old acts as if he's a 6-year-old. And so I just want to make sure that I'm providing the same time and expectations for both, and not overstepping any boundaries, and ensuring that I'm able to communicate with both of them in an effective way.
Yep, I love that question. I appreciate that. I heard a couple things. One, think about quality time over quantity time. I know that we are busy. We are working we have so many things competing for our time and attention. But you can actually, like in terms of time, you could spend a whole day together, but you don't always have a whole day. But you could spend a good quality 15 minutes really listening to them tell you about Pokemon or something. I don't know. But like in the end, it's really about how we are present with them when we are there. Am I distracted on my phone while you're talking to me? Am I also multitasking and working while you're talking to me? So this idea of active listening can really strengthen the quality of those connections. The other thing I heard was you said the phrase acting like their age, which I love. One thing to keep in mind, like you were saying, the 13-year-old and 60-year-old kind of act different ages all the time. Let them act whatever age they want to act, whatever day they want to act like a 13-year-old, that's fine. I really believe in meeting kids where they are. Just meet them wherever they are on that day, which is hard for you because it means that you have to be like, okay, now which kid do I have right now? Who is showing up to me right now? And you have to make the adjustment. So you just meet the kid where they are and try your best to understand what they're trying to express to you. The other thing I heard was that you wondered about having the same expectations for both relationships, but really it's two different relationships. And you don't have to have the same expectations for both. We can talk about equity versus equality if you want to. Like, it doesn't mean that I tell my kids all the time, in our house, everybody gets what they need. That doesn't mean that everybody gets the same thing. Everybody gets what they need. That doesn't mean that everybody gets the same thing. And so I think that that's an important perspective to kind of keep in mind. We're like, every kid is different from year to year. And so all you're doing is just making sure that each kid and each relationship has what they need. I hope that helps.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the
No
insight.
problem.
We're hitting the 8:30 mark, but I want to offer if there's any last question, if Dr. Trenita is willing.
I'm willing. I like this group.
Any other final questions? And we'll follow up with contact information as well for folks that want to follow up in a more private setting. Awesome. Well, I think that is probably our cue to kind of wind down a little bit. Did you have any final remarks you wanted to make?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. This feels so good. This is like really warm and fuzzy for me. And Lord knows we need some warm and fuzzy. So I just really appreciate this space and all of the folks who are here engaged and asking good questions. Thank you so much. If I can be a resource, please let me know.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Trenita, and appreciate you taking the time to speak with all of us, leading us in this conversation. If anyone else is like me, you've given us a lot to think about. So a follow-up email will be sent to everyone on this call. And again, part of that email will include some contact information. Dr. Trenita has offered herself for anyone who has any follow-up questions or wants to reach out. I know she shared some information on these slides as well. This event was recorded as she shared, and so that'll be up on our website in the next few days. So anyone can re-listen and capture some of the data that she was chatting about, or look at some of the slides maybe we didn't have a chance to go over as much. Or if you know folks that weren't able to join, or you think folks would really benefit from this, you're welcome to point them to that recording as well. Just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. We are incredibly grateful for you being here with us, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.